Okay, so Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis have had a bit of a situation over the weekend at UFC 296, and to be honest, it was the most exciting fight of the entire pay-per-view. What Josh Emmett did to Bryce Mitchell wasn't exactly exciting, it was horrifying. Now, before I get into this, I just want to say I'm a big fan of both these fighters, just their style in the cage and their personalities. So I really don't have a dog in the race here, but I just noticed a couple of things and I think it is a very interesting topic. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this, give my 2 cents on this. I want to hear your feedback on these ideas, but I really do not have a person that I want to win this fight, which sucks because they are definitely going to fight. And if Dricus wins, he seems to annoy everyone around him. He's very entertaining. If Sean Strickland wins, every time a microphone's in him, we are all entertained in some way, whether we like it or dislike it. So I just wanted to just share my thoughts and break down exactly what I thought about this. There are a couple of things that people aren't pointing out that I did wanted to point out. So to be fair, there are 3 ways to look at this situation. And one is Sean Strickland. If you want to live by the sword, you have to die by the sword. The second one is, was this manufactured by the UFC? I'm not saying the UFC gave them scripts to follow, but it is interesting just how they were seated and how many cameras were pointing at them. Completely out of the blue that no one is talking about, I wanted to talk about Jamahal Hill and what an absolute legend he is. And finally, whether or not Sean Strickland actually has the right to be upset about what Dricus Du Plessis said to him. Okay, let's get right into this. The first one is Sean Strickland, yeah? You gotta live by the sword, die by the sword. Now, this one I can sort of see as being the most contentious one. I can see myself getting a lot of feedback on this down in the comments section. You know, Sean Strickland, live by the sword, die by the sword. And look, Sean has made a career, literally a career, just off poking everyone around him and saying outrageous things. He's that psychopath that doesn't care what comes out of his mouth. And as a free speech absolutist, I am totally fine with that. I don't have a problem with the way that Sean Strickland is choosing to present himself. However, that does mean that, you know, when you start to flow it around the room and a bit of it hits the fan, don't be surprised when it all splatters back all over you, okay? The whole thing stems from Dricus Du Plessis saying that he's going to beat him so bad that the trauma of Sean Strickland's dad beating him as a child is going to come back to him, and what Dricus is going to do is going to make those beatings look easy, or something along those lines. Don't take that as an exact quote, but that's essentially what Dricus Du Plessis said to Sean Strickland, and it really annoyed him, and quite frankly, a lot of people got annoyed at that. The internet was up in arms about that, because Sean likes to give it to people, but he gives it to people on the choices that they make as adults. The way Sean O'Malley chooses to live his life with his wife, the way Ian Gary chooses to live his life with his wife. Sean Strickland does this because these men have chosen to live their lives that way, so it's on them. But the way that Sean Strickland's dad treated him as a child is not anything in Sean's control. So that's Sean's argument. But here's the interesting thing, right? This stems from the implication that Sean made to Dricus that Dricus is a homosexual. Dricus might be gay, yeah? I mean, he kisses his coach on the lips. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's a homosexual thing. I don't really know. I don't really care if Dricus is gay or not. I'm not getting into that. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that Dricus Du Plessis is a closeted homosexual and he's uncomfortable coming out of the closet about his homosexuality in this incredibly hyper-masculine sport of MMA. And now Sean Strickland is going at him for that. Now, I'm not saying that Dricus is gay. I'm just saying we don't know. And for some reason, it seems to be okay for Sean to have a go at him for something that he may not be able to control. And it's not okay for Dricus to have a go at Sean for something that he couldn't control. I mean, are we sure that Dricus isn't gay? He does kiss his coach on the lips. Look, honestly, it's really not the most outrageous thing to me. I don't really care. To me, they're just words, you know. Suck it up if you're going to play that talking game. That's the way that it is. But I will say this. Sean Strickland has literally laughed at an MMA fighter that's been killed and hit by a bus. And I can quote Sean on this one. He said, if you can't dodge a bus, you can't dodge a punch, and that's why you're not in the UFC. And to go even further than that, Sean Strickland says that he stands by that joke because to him, it's goddamn hilarious.
I got hit by a fucking bus and died. No one gave a fuck about that guy. When I read it, I was like, God damn, dude, if you can't dodge a bus, that's why you're not in the UFC. That was my first joke when I read that, and I stand by it. It's fucking hilarious.
Now that's Sean Strickland laughing at someone who died and who has kids, and he chose to make money for his family and for his kids by cage fighting, right? And Sean Strickland found him getting hit by a bus funny. Now, I'll be fair to Sean and explain the rest of the context of what he was talking about. Sean was talking about how the internet completely ignored this guy because he was a Brazilian man, and during that week in the world of MMA, a woman had died and she got her name put at the start of the fight night for that week. And because she was a young blonde woman and this guy was a Brazilian man, the internet and the world just forgot about this guy and all chose to focus on her. That's the point that Sean Strickland was making. But he did still make a joke about a dead man. Now, if it's not okay to laugh at the father that your trauma caused you growing up, then surely, Sean, it cannot be okay to laugh at a man who is cage fighting to support his family, dying by getting hit by a bus, right? Like, to me, that's a very big deal. That one is a big deal, laughing at a bloke being hit by a bus. And that is a bit of a hypocrisy. And I think it's just important to take that, just take that information on the next time that we want to call Sean Strickland the victim, yeah? Now, a bit of news that I did want to look at here was the footage of the scuffle. I want to give a little bit of praise to Jamahal Hill. Sean Strickland asks Gilbert Burns and his family very politely to move out of the way, and they do, and then he leaps over the seats like Thor. And Jamahal Hill instantly sweeps into action and saves the women and children, while everyone else around them either jumps into the fight to try and break them up, or goes and gets out their phones. And it looks like from this angle that Jamahal Hill might be the only one in the room full of celebrities and fighters that actually cares about the safety of the women and children next to the scuffle.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Out of nowhere. That's...
And I just think out of all the noise that popped off this weekend, that is something really admirable. And Jamahal deserves some credit for that, even if it is just on this very small little corner of the internet. Well done, Jamahal Hill. At least it got said by someone out there. Next thing, was this staged by the UFC? Look, I called Dana White and he spoke to me on the phone and promised me that this was completely by accident. He didn't do it on purpose. In all seriousness, Dana White admitted to the press after the fight that it was him that actually set up the seating arrangements, and Dana White said that it was completely his fault. Now, I'm sure that he didn't give Dricus and Sean a script, but Sean Strickland is a goddamn psycho, yeah? And Dricus is a dude that doesn't mind stirring the pot. And Dana White is a very smart man. He put them a couple of rows away from each other, and not only that, he pointed 4 or 5 cameras at them, all from multiple different angles, and just sat back and waited for it to happen. And then the UFC took the footage and put it on all their social media channels, which means it's the UFC showing exactly what happened. It's the UFC marketing what happened. I don't care how much they're saying it's horrible behavior and how much the commentary is saying that it's a terrible look for the sport. I don't look at their words. I look at the UFC's actions, and the UFC's actions were to put gasoline next to an open flame, point 5 cameras at it, and then act as surprised when there was an explosion. Not exactly scripted, but not exactly, unexpected either. Let's wrap this up, yeah? Is Sean Strickland justified at being upset? Honestly, I don't know. It depends. It depends on if Sean Strickland would get upset if that struggling child of the deceased man who got hit by a bus, if that struggling child came up to him and punched him in the street, if he was annoyed by that at the end of the day, then that is probably enough for Sean Strickland to answer whether or not he's justified at another guy laughing at his trauma. This is the thing. What's going on here is very personal and it's very, very messy. So it's hard to give an accurate take on this because we're not the ones flinging insults around. We don't know where the line is when the insults are coming back at us. It's up to the fighters. But to Sean Strickland, if I was him, that's the sort of question that I would be asking myself. The real takeaway here is we have to sort of look at this, to me, as the Joker and the Batman. The Joker is created because the Batman escalated the war on crime in Gotham City. And the Joker was a reaction to that escalation. If you're going to be walking around the world of MMA for a few years, and now you have all the cameras on you, and you're constantly saying crazy ass stuff, I don't think you can be too surprised that when you have your first title defense, the next man that comes along decides to take your 10 out of 10 outrageousness and dial it all the way up to 13. Just my 2 cents. Let me know yours down in the comments. If you've been enjoying this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button down there. I appreciate every single one of you. And of course, I'll see you all in the next video.